Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, we back at it.
It's just me and the Joneses. Just me and the Joneses.
Mm. Okay.
Okay, so today we are talking about
Whooping
spare
ass.
sparing the rod, y'all. Okay, sparing the rod, y'all. Okay. So of course this is a huge debate out there in the world today, right? About disciplining and sparing the rod, and the Bible says it's better rod spoil the child. What does that really mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And not to mention, we just seen the episode of House of Pain when um um Ella was telling Miranda that she basically need to be her whoop her kids because
whoop her kids to get him in line because he was running around too much.
Yeah.
And like you need to spank him.
And Miranda was like, no, me and Calvin are not doing that with our children. Yeah. And so she overheard them say that, oh, if they keeping them, they gonna beat them and all that stuff. So which is another thing. Yeah, that's like might be a boundary issue there. But anyway, so I know I have gotten a butt whipping before when I was younger.
I had my share.
I didn't get many.
I didn't get away with everything. Sometimes I got caught.
But I didn't get many at all. You did?
I got a few.
A few? What
not
you call it?
Not a whole lot compared to like other people I be hearing. I grew up with. They got many, growing up, but I didn't get a lot though. I wasn't like that.
What kind of stuff did you get a spanking for? Or a beat? Because some people it's a spanking and then it's getting the butter from the duck. Like to me, that's two different things. Because
most of it is a typical belt thing. Like one time, my mama got me because this guy came to the door and I just opened the door.
She couldn't just tell you don't open the door. Well, I'll just say.
I guess when we were growing up where I was at that time, she was like, why'd you do that? And I was like, that don't mean that. Don't get a belt. I don't know what kind of day she was having or whatever, but I was like, dang, all right.
How old were you? Do you remember how old you were when you got your last
middle school or something like that?
When you got your last whooping?
No, I'm talking about that time.
So when you got your last whooping in high school?
Yeah.
Really?
High school, yeah. It was crazy.
I didn't get a whooping when I was in high school. I think my last whooping was, but like I said, I didn't get many. I don't even remember getting that many spankings, to be honest. Yeah. Whoopings. Maybe when I was a little person, maybe I got tapped on a little bit, but shoot, I remember when me and my brother was were we in middle school at the time? Yeah, I know we was around 12. I know at least me and Tony is only a year apart. Yeah. So I know I was around maybe middle school age when me and him went up the street to the park somewhere. We was just out and about. My mama came home looking for us and she couldn't find us. Yeah. So when we got home, we got a whooping. So that's the last whooping I ever remember getting. Yeah. And then me and him sat there and laughed afterwards. But I mean, she well, I think that's how she would us with a switch. Oh. But shoot, I mean, yeah, some people had to go get their own switches. I probably had to before. Who knows? I don't. It could have been things that.
I don't think I had to ever go get my own.
Yeah, and so me personally, like a lot of my thought process on spanking has changed. Like with my older kids, when I was the younger mom, I spanked them for things that I think I should not have ever. And that's one of the reasons why I've changed my perspective so much when it came down to Camden being the last kid. He's completely different. Like I changed my perspective so much because as I grew and as I learned more things about discipline and things like that, I didn't feel like I needed to hit him for things that I did spank my older kids for. And I was a younger mother, so I was more so in the mindset of, oh, he need to have a whooping for this, or he need to have a whooping for that, or whatever. And even things Like the things, because like that's what I knew. Like you get a switch and you spank your kids, right? And
that was like the norm, the culture.
Yeah,
that's how we were brought up.
And
so
they
better
what
we knew to do for the discipline, to discipline our kids. That's just the way we were, I guess, taught. Yeah, through the culture.
Yeah.
Through normal life.
Like that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's how I saw it.
Like it's a standard or something.
Yeah, it was really like a standard. Yeah. But I learned, I started to feel like, and then so Ella made the comment, well, you spell the right, you spoil the child. So who's to say that meant to actually physically hit your kids though? So when you think about like, and I did some reading and different things about, even the shepherd and how he leads the sheep. And, we know that he uses a rod, if we want to be biblical about it. Right. So, for like discipline, but not to hit them, for guidance, a way of authority, and things of that nature. Like I really truly believe that if you spell the rod is symbolic for discipline, having that authority of your kids, that guidance, those things like that. And some people out there, they don't believe in parents having power over your children at all. See, I'm not in that space right there. Like I know kids need this. They need guidance. You are an authority figure for your children. But it's how you use that authority that matters a lot about, if you can be causing damage to your child or things like that. So like in life, I was reading up on something and it made a lot of sense. They were saying that, hey, okay, so basically you raising your children to be great adults, right?
Right. You're
trying to.
Yeah.
And so if your way of correcting them is only to hit them, then when they grow up and they get into the world, they get out their life, if that's the only consequence that they're receiving is to be hit, then how is that helping them when they grow up and they become adults and they're out there in life? Like, what about teaching them other things? You know what I'm saying? So what about teaching them? Okay, yeah, you have consequences. A lot of people think because you don't spank your kids or you don't whoop them, oh, they're going to grow up, they're going to hit you, or they're going to grow up to be this or that, or the troublemaker. That's not necessarily true, because you're a kid. I know people who got beat the heck down. I didn't even get that many whoopings, but I know people that got beat the heck down that end up in all sorts of trouble, all kinds of, and the whoopings did not work. And it's people that I see spank their kids and they say the whoopings don't work. So why would you continue to use the same method of discipline that's not working? So now at this point, you're just hitting them because you're mad.
At that point, you're just hitting them because you're mad, just to apply pain.
You're
mad. Yeah. They did something. You're mad, so they got to feel the pain.
Mm-hmm. They got to feel your frustration.
But does it help? How
much is that helping?
It may help at the moment, but in the long term, what is it really doing?
It's not even. The only thing that's happening at that moment. It's not, if your child isn't changing the behavior. It's not, and the behavior isn't being modified. It's not even happening in that moment.
Well, I mean,
it's just helping you feel good.
When I say in the moment, I mean stop doing what the child is doing. Whatever they got in trouble for doing, they stop doing right then at that moment. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. But I mean, whether they change their mind on wanting to do it again or change their attitude or towards whatever the case was, mm-hmm. they still may go out and do it again.
Yeah, and then
they'll try to be smart about it next time.
Yeah, and then finding out what's the issue. Like maybe there's some type of core issue that the spankings aren't working, or and even if you don't spank them, like even if you feel like they stopped doing it for X amount of time, yeah. But if it's a certain thing that they're doing, what is this causing them to do? Like what's happening? And sometimes I know we as adults, because our grandmama and them might have said it, that you do as I say, not as I do, or something like that. But we are the examples for our children. Like they're watching us, right? So if we show that we don't have any type of emotional regulation, and sometimes a lot of adults don't, and then when their children do something they don't like, they don't know how to regulate their emotions, and they take whatever frustrations out on that kid, even if it's other things that's coming along with the frustration that has nothing to do with that kid. So you can be having a bad day, you can be going through your own stuff and all of that. And then this kid does something. Oh, now on top of everything I'm going through, I'm already going through all of this stuff in my life. And then you coming home with a bad report card, or the teacher calling me today. And now I'm finna whoop your behind.
Like the straw that broke the camel's
back. The straw that brought the, yes, exactly. And so instead of you dealing with your stuff, you actually say, okay, so this is what I have control over. So I'm going to take what I do have control over, which is this belt, this switch, this extension cord, whatever you're using to hit your child with. And now I'm going to whoop your behind because you're adding to the issues that I'm having.
Some parents whoop the hell out of these kids as hard as they can. They don't try to like limit it to like just a few pops. They go until they get tired. You know, like, goodness gracious, you know.
Yeah.
And it's funny. This is a good topic also because I learned something a few months ago. I was listening to this radio show on Urban Views, Sirius XM. Loree Daniels, the Loree Daniels show. She had a guest on there, a guest speaker, and they were talking about the same topic. And so there was one part of it that was so strong and powerful. I learned so much from this conversation. She was talking about how you can actually cause developmental issues when you whoop children like that. And I mean, I don't know the science behind it, but all that trauma that you're putting on your child could cause like heart issues, you know, all kind of developmental issues when that child needs to grow up, brain issues, heart issues, any kind of organs or whatever they need, you know, whatever their body needs to grow, you know, any body part can just be affected in such a way from the whoopings, from all that trauma.
Yeah.
Emotional issues. There's all kind of there's a lot more negative to it than the positive that you think you might gain from it.
Yeah, because you know, a lot of people that they'll say, well, I got whoopings and I turned out okay. Yeah. If you did indeed turn out okay, is it because you got the whooping?
Because they probably still got some emotional issues going on that they need to address.
And what about the things that you could have been taught that you got whooped? You know, you might have got whooped for certain things that could have actually been a teaching lesson.
Right.
You know, and it was nothing but a whooping. Now you're going to get a whooping because you did this. But how do I help my child to grow with, you know, beyond me just saying, okay, you're gonna get a whooping because this was wrong and you know right from wrong. But what about like teaching, like, okay, this deserves a consequence, you know, and this is, you know, like making a life lesson out of what actually happened versus stopping right there at that whooping. I'm gonna whoop you and then that's gonna be it. You know,
and like when you was reading in the car on the way back home, when the guy wrote that, okay, people say that they turned out great. They got whoopings, but they still turned out good. What if I like
they didn't get the whooping?
Didn't get whoopings? Yeah. What if they just got taught to, or alternate form of punishment? But still, how would they have turned out?
Yeah, how did that?
You probably still would have turned out good.
Taking that whooping from the equation, yes. How, you know, and sometimes people actually think that, oh, I turned out good because I got a whooping.
Because I got a whooping.
And like that's not proven. Like you didn't. You're not. Your whoopings could have been taken out of the equation, and you still could have turned out okay. Now I'm not.
It's not better.
Yeah,
because you didn't get whoopings. So.
And I'm not gonna say like I'm totally against like spanking, but I know it's a lot of people that get abused. It's a lot of people that get abused. A lot of children that's being abused and get abused because of corporal punishment. And sometimes parents don't think that that's abuse. Some ways that they abuse them, they don't do that. They don't think that the way they're doing it is abuse. So, like. It's such a thin line there, because if your child is going through some emotional trauma or either some emotional stuff, period, you know, and they're acting out in a certain way because they don't know quite what to do with those emotions. And then they get a whooping because of that. That just adds on top of whatever that emotional thing they're going through. And they're not, and to say that, well, they need to communicate and they need to say they're going through this. Not everybody, not even adults know how to always communicate or understand what it is that they're going through. So of course, kids may not either, you know, so thinking about the fact that, okay, and then in the way that you're doing it, and then doing it for things that, you know, does not even warrant to be hit. Instead, like I said, maybe you can use this as a lesson or talking, you know, whatever. Because it's like I said, it's kids out there that get hit. They don't get no kind of talks. They don't get no kind of warnings. No nothing. They don't get to be heard. It's just like, no, you get your behind toe up. Yeah. Boom. That's it. And a lot of times, like I said, abuse, to me, it's also when you're inflicting physical pain onto your children because you're frustrated, because your emotions are overwhelming for you. To me, that's a form of abuse, because the reason why you're doing it, like, you may not even understand that it's because, oh, I'm pissed off right now, so I'm finna whoop your behind. You know what I'm saying? And that's how a lot of kids get. Yes.
And then they probably
and sometimes they go too far.
The parent actually probably feel better after they
feel better, and there's something really wrong with that, because I'm not gonna feel better after, because I do see people brag about that, like, oh yeah, and I whoop they behind them, blah blah blah, and da da da, and I'm like,
and they go on Facebook and brag about it,
brag about
social media and brag about it.
But yeah, because a lot of people feel like when they whoop their children, it makes them a better parent.
Yeah.
So with that being said, so with that, right? So I'm gonna let people know that, oh, I don't play, I do, yeah, I don't play, and I told they behind up and da da da, and it's like bragging. When why does it feel good? Like, even if you're doing it from the right place, why does it feel good that you're doing that? Like, why? You know, some people, and I've known people to cry. They'll spank their kids and go cry because they had to spank their children. And that right there means that they did not really want to do that. But they feel like this had to be done because I really feel like this was something that they, you know, was afraid that their child was going to go if they didn't get them this whooping, and they was going to go out there and this situation was going to happen. And they feel like they did whatever they needed to do to stop this from happening, or to teach their kid that this or whatever, and they would go cry because they didn't want to do that, but they felt like that was the only option, you know, whatever. And it could have been other options, but maybe they felt like that was their only option. That was all they knew.
Yeah, maybe they didn't know what else.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really, when you think about it, these are things that's been taught from generation to generation, you know, and it's not, you know, when you see kids running over them and saying whatever they want to say, treating them in the kind of way, it's not because they don't get whoopings per se. It's because they don't have discipline at all. Like, the parents are not putting boundaries in place and enforcing the boundaries. They're not disciplining them. Discipline whooping your kid is not the only form of discipline, you know? And so, some of these children aren't getting consequences, you know, and so in turn they don't respect boundaries. They don't respect their parents. They do, you know. So that's the thing. Like, it's just not just because a person doesn't, like, for instance, like with Cam don't do anything for me to say, okay, you need to have a whooping. Like, you know, he's not the perfect child.
Chill, well-mannered.
Right, but he does things that he shouldn't do. But that doesn't mean that I got to whoop him for it, right? So I feel like there's other ways for me to discipline. It's other consequences that we can give him.
Last time I popped Cam was a few years ago. You know, that's about 3 years ago, something like that. And there's a few pops on the butt because he said something, and that was it.
And me, I was looking like, you had to hit him for that. Like,
it was something at the time he said. But that was the last time though. But one thing I do like that's becoming more the norm now is parents putting their kids in therapy.
Yeah,
they need. I like hearing about stuff like that instead of just, you know, going back to, okay, we're just gonna whoop the child. Now they're more like, okay, a lot of parents are going the route of trying to slow things down and say, okay, well, what's really going on? What's the issue?
Yeah,
do we need to go see a counselor, therapist, or whoever? You know, I do like that. So and that's pretty cool. That's how it ought to be, actually, because therapy is more the norm, which I'm always glad to hear about that. And I wish it was a norm when I was growing up. Because growing up in the hood, I ain't gonna lie, you know, I know I had some mental issues. You know what I mean? I mean, I saw it as a dangerous environment sometimes. There were sometimes I thought I was really gonna lose my life just walking down the street.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you just, because I mean, you know, growing up in the hood and then all kind of factors with that, it was just, sometimes it was hard.
And that's a good point that you brought that up, because like, I think that parents have to also be mindful that it's certain situations and circumstances that can also be affecting the kids' behavior, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And one of the things that's very important is to be mindful of how much time we're spending with our kids. You know,
that attention, right?
Right. Not letting the internet raise them.
Right.
Because nowadays, you know, a lot of kids spend a lot of time on the internet. So, you know, sometimes we're as parents may be busy, and life gets hectic sometimes, and parents may be busy doing things, or sometimes just caught up into their own social media or whatever, or you know um and not really being mindful that, okay, so maybe there's something that I need to switch up and change that could possibly help modify my child's behavior, so then you know um I don't have to try to go to these extreme measures to get them to behave the way they should be behaving,
Right.
or the way I want them to behave, or whatever the case may be.
Right. A lot of people do fall into that. What was it? That convenient life of giving the kids the gaming stuff, the smart TVs, smartphones, all this stuff to keep them busy. And they have less attention with their kids, or less time with their kids.
Yeah, which is fine to have those things, but
to an extent,
to balance them and still make sure that you're putting your child's behavior is not being affected by your absence.
Yes.
Or you replacing yourself with those things,
with the internet.
And then when they act out or they do things, then you want to hit them or punish them or give them consequences or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And
when you want there,
something that you can change to help modify that behavior.
That's right. Something you can change in your daily lives to, even if it's all right, no electronics at the dinner table. Let's talk.
Yeah.
We spend time watching TV together, family show, family movie together.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Yeah.
And sometimes, getting kids to talk and open up is, instead of sitting down, sometimes they open up better, like you taking walks or you doing things like that, versus sitting at the table, which is good, because like I know some people still, I've seen people that say they still do that, like sit down and have dinner with their kids or talk about things or whatever the case may be.
That's
to
right.
Find out if it's something bothering them beyond what you might be seeing or what you think you see, like right there on the surface, but what is it that might be bothering them? So instead of just, because like so many people like to, like we were saying earlier, beat them for everything. And it's like, not, I'm just going to beat this behavior out of you.
Yeah.
And the real problem may not be being fixed.
That's right.
So, yeah. But, and there's no handbook to parenting.
Definitely not.
So there's nothing perfect about anybody's parenting or anything like that. Like I said, I used to hit my kids for things that I didn't even, that like right now today I wouldn't have hit them for. So it was just a matter of me opening up my understanding more and seeing what else works.
You're older and wiser now, so that's how life. That's how life ought to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
as we all are.
Mm-hmm. So parenting is one of those learn as you go type of things, to be honest.
Yeah.
Nobody have it all right.
Yeah, because with every age or every grade, you never know what you're gonna get. Your kid may fall into the line with these new friends or whatever, and they start acting out. I mean, you got to teach them not to be.
Even then, what are we gonna? Is there the reason? Is there a reason for that?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So let us know in the comments, y'all. Do y'all believe in corporal punishment? Do you have other ways of giving consequences to your child? Did you get spanked, beat, whoop, whatever when you were growing up? I know some people probably got things thrown across the room at them. And so what are y'all opinions? Like, everybody, have their different beliefs and opinions about this situation. This is a very unpopular conversation or topic or whatever, and I see arguments about it all the time. Yeah. But with that being said, let us know in the comments what you think about, disciplining, and if even what you think about federal rods for the child, what does that mean to you? Like, is that rod symbolic for the discipline, the authority and stuff to you, or is it mean something to actually hit or beat your children with? So,
and if you know somebody who's just beating their kids way too much for no reason, then maybe share this video with them and hopefully change their mind. They may see this and be like, hey, well, I never thought about it that way, so let me try this and see what happens. Or let me seek alternate ways that I can discipline my child and still guide them. Yeah.
So let us know. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when our other videos are coming.
Yeah.
And share and just give us your feedback. And it's just been a jump.
All right, y'all. Take it easy.